Legstep Radio, the radio ready for rapture. I'm your host, DJay32, also known as Jordan Doolin, call me whatever you want, and today we are going to be doing, as that music might have perhaps suggested, okay, this didn't suggest this at all, you're not going to predict this, but, well, I've labeled the thingy, so you'll know what you're listening to, because I've labeled it, but we're going to be doing Alliterator Corner, or something like that, Alliterator Avenue, Alliteration Street, Alliteration Nation, Population Alliterator. Again, I'm your host, DJ. I'm making shit up as I'm going along here, but basically, I'm going to be reading an Alliterator fear blog, and I've already done, well, I did it on Ontological. I don't know if I actually posted Ontological, but I did it, and When the Sky Was Open, which was a really short one. You could call it a blog post stuff, but today I'm going to be reading a classic, and that's why I played that fancy music, which is from Portal 2. Specifically, that song is called Machiavellian Bach. Machiavellian Bach. And I'm taking my hat off here, throwing my hat across the room. There we go. Okay. We don't need hats where we're going. Or let me say that again. Where we're going, we don't need hats. There we go. I'll be funny eventually. Like freaking almost 9 a.m. I'm tired, so I stayed up all night. But anyway, I've got in my hand War and Peace, but we're not going to be reading War and Peace. I wish Alliterator wrote War and Peace. That would have been really cool. But we're going to be reading Brighter Than a Spoon, which is apparently one of Alliterator's more famous blogs. It is one of the very first fear blogs, actually, or one of their earlier ones. I don't know the specific history of this one. I remember this was a pretty big name. It's always been a big name, but it was a big name back when we were first starting. But, yeah. So, let's begin reading. Okay, I'll just keep talking a bit more. So, I forgot what I was going to say. Right, this is Alliterator. He's considered to be sort of a classic writer, as in, well, like, I always considered him to be a classic fear blogger, because his blogs always had this strange classic feel to them. Whenever you read them, it felt like you were supposed to be, like, sitting in an armchair by a fireplace. He's got that sort of knack. His blogs are really good. But, right. Brighter Than a Spoon was one of the ones that put him on the map. This was like Jordan Eats Normally Now era, way back then. Over a year ago. But yeah, let's begin reading Brighter Than a Spoon. Also, it's worth noting, this is actually the very first time I've ever read this blog. I've been putting it off all this time. I put off blogs a lot. But, right. I mean, I've read snippets of it, because, like, as I said, it was ongoing around the time that I was writing Jordan Eats Normally Now. But, and it was a big name. But, anyway, let's see what a classic fear blog is like. I'm gonna skip dates because I don't really know the dates. Brand new first post. So, this is an old journal that I wasn't using, so I refurbished it, and now voila, or viola. A place to put my poetry. Who am I? I'm Tav, a 25-year-old college graduate working as an accounting clerk. Graduate, working as an accounting clerk. I know, boring. I live alone, don't drink, don't smoke. I do, however, write poetry. None published yet. I shall be putting all the poems I write here, along with any tidbits I want to share about my life. I doubt it, since it is quite boring. And now for the first... What smells like coffee? And now for the first post, one of my favorite poets, D.H. Lawrence. I don't know why I thought of this poem just now, but I like it. It's dark. It's called Discord in Childhood. My Little Pony fanfiction. Outside the house, an ash tree hung its terrible whips, and at night when the wind arose, the lash of the tree shrieked and slashed the wind as a ship's weird rigging in a storm shrieks hideously. Within the house 2 voices arose in anger, a slender lash, whistling delirious rage and the dreadful sound of a thick lash booming and bruising until it drowned the other voice in a silence of blood, 'neath the noise of the ash. Groovy. I don't know why I'm mocking it. I mean, I write poetry, so I shouldn't really be mocking it. Also, in case this isn't obvious, there's a video. Like, you can see, you can read it along with me, because I've recorded the video. Okay, if you didn't notice that. Voices. Whatever. New poem. Okay, so here's one of my own poems. I wrote it a few days ago after a particularly weird dream. I don't have a title for it, so it's just Untitled I, or 1. Limbs tired and sore from running in place, twist, trip on the floor, and fly down into space. I awoke then at midnight, skin clammy and cold, hands switched on the light, then I saw him unfold. He was tall as if stretched, and his movements were graceless, but in my mind now is etched his visage blank, white, and faceless. This is gonna be a really fun blog to read. Now this is weird. On the page where I wrote this poem, there's some weird symbols underneath, but I don't remember writing them. Maybe I doodled them when I was dreaming? Any readers out there, if I have any readers yet, want to take a crack at it? I don't have a scanner yet, so I made a quick copy on MS Paint. Hey, it's Led Zeppelin 4. But tish. Hurry up. This is a long entry. The Pale Prince and His One Wife. I don't usually write prose stories, but I couldn't get to sleep and this just popped into my head. It's kind of a weird, dark little fairy tale. I'm not so sure about the ending. I think I was very tired and started not off while typing. The Pale Prince and His One Wife. There was a kingdom ruled over by a prince whose skin was as white as a sheet. He ruled things justly and fair, but was always nervous around women due to his particular skin condition. Then one day he had a visitor. The visitor. Nobody's gonna get that. I always call him the visitor because that was his TV trope's name. I ramble a lot. A woman from a... This is a woman. A woman from a faraway land whose skin was as pale as his was. Looking into her eyes, he found true love, and soon they were wed. Their story doesn't end there, however. The Pale Prince's wife was suddenly stricken by an ailment, causing blood to stain her precious white skin as it poured from her nose and mouth and eyes. The prince brought forth doctors and alchemists and wizards and witch doctors, but none could help her. Finally, the prince called upon the very devil himself with a capital D. Please save my wife, he pleaded, and I will do whatsoever you ask. The devil nodded his head, for he had always wanted the princess's puppet, the male wooden girl, and said, very well, do what I saw. Exactly, do what I saw. I imagine that's supposed to say, do what I say exactly and your wife will get better. I feel kind of like I'm speaking as Bane now. The prince listened to the instructions and then rushed to his wife's room. The first thing he did, Batman, was place a cauldron of water over the fireplace. Now I'm Sean Connery. When it was boiling hot, that's not Sean Connery, I don't know any voices. He took it and placed it near his wife. He took one of her delicate hands in his and, with only a small amount of doubt, plunged it into the water. She moaned once. Oh. What was that? There we go. But didn't seem to feel the pain. The water, however, boiled and swirled, and some spilled over the edges, catching the prince's leg and scalding him, though he was careful not to let go of his wife's hand. Finally, after 6 minutes had passed, he took her hand out of the cauldron and laid her back down to rest. Then he took the cauldron and spilled the water down the privy. The very next day, the prince's wife was feeling better. She no longer bled from the mouth or nose or eyes, but once the prince held her hand, he noticed she felt very cold. When he asked if she wanted another blanket, she said she had no need. She didn't feel the cold at all. The day after that, she was well enough to walk around her room, and the day after that, she was taking walks through the castle and the courtyard. The prince was so joyful, he almost forgot his bargain with the devil. The prince did notice something different about his wife besides the cold. Sometimes, when passing an animal, she would pet them with unease, as if the warmth of their bodies disturbed her. She had not yet come back to bed with the prince, and he wondered what she would do when she did. Finally, one night, he requested that they both sleep in the same bed. She agreed without argument, but in the bed, she stayed as far away from him as she could. When he tried to touch her hand, she flinched away and said to him, "Please, I don't like the heat." He did not know what to make of it. Then, about a week later, he awoke in the middle of the night to find his wife gone from the bed. Searching the castle, he found her in the courtyard next to one of the hunting dogs. She was kneeling next to it, and he thought at first she was petting it, but then he noticed it was not moving and there was a stain of red on the ground. He called out to his wife, and when she turned, he could see that she had killed the dog and cut out its innards, heart and everything. "It was too hot," she said. "I had to remove its heat, its heart. Too much blood makes too much heat." The prince just turned and ran from his wife, ran from the castle and into the woods. There he met the devil again under an ash tree and asked, "Why?" "You ask me why?" the devil said. "You wanted your wife to live, and so she will. You never asked that she be warm or sane. You must remember that the cost of asking for something is getting that which you asked for." The prince cried out, "Then tell me what I must do for you. What else must I give up in service to the devil?" The devil looked at him then. "Oh, I'm not the devil. You want that guy over there? He's the devil," he said. "I'm a story, just like you, and we all play our parts in this story. Yours was just as the tragic hero, while mine was as the tempter." I don't think that's what a tragic hero is. I mean, I don't think this prince had a tragic flaw. I think that was more of he was tricked. It is a case of deception, not really of tragedy. But yes, tragedy is a very specific thing. But anyway, while mine was as the tempter. It's but a morality play, you see. Just look around. The prince looked around, and suddenly it was day, and the woods seemed foreign to him. "Where are we?" he asked. "Somewhere else," the not really the devil said. "In between. The woods here exist everywhere and nowhere." Oh, real philosophical. A liminal forest, you might say. "And what are you then, if not the devil?" the prince asked. "I told you, I'm a story. An old story or a new story, maybe. I'm Twilight," the not devil said. "Or perhaps I'm a story you yourself are writing. Perhaps I'm real and perhaps you're not." The not devil turned to the prince, and then, where his face used to be, there was nothing. The prince jumped backwards and then realized he was looking into a pond, a mirror of his own face. What? He stood up and stretched out his arms and remembered who he was. That, I've got to admit, that was kind of a confusing and... I don't think that was a very good story. I mean, I imagine that it's just supposed to introduce the concept of the Slender Man and of the Cold Boy, I guess, introducing the motifs of cold. But, I mean, if you were trying to go for surreal, surreal, I don't know. I mean, theoretically speaking, you can be as surreal as you want, it doesn't really matter, but, I mean, I don't know, I prefer it when there's a bit of logic to it. Because, like, this feels like all that is just a dream. Like, if you're presenting it as a dream, then sure, that's much better. But I digress. After I finished typing up the story, I found the notebook I kept beside my bed had another string of symbols on it. Maybe I'm a cryptographer in my dreams? Sleep ciphering? Anyway, let's see if anyone can make heads or tails of it. It's Led Zeppelin 4 again. The key, the key, the key. Led Zeppelin 4, Part 3. Carved symbols in a mountain hollow on the bank of an inlet irritated and eccentric person. His eyes closed, his mouth open, his eyes closed, his mouth open, his eyes closed, his mouth open. It sounds like it's a new wave, like, techno song. His arms outstretched, his arms outstretched, his arms outstretched. So this is obviously a cryptic arc word of sorts. But yeah, I mean, from the looks of it, this seems like a slender block. I mean, I shouldn't really be judging it that harshly, because this is back when we still had a canon. When we had to stick with, when the fears each had specific interpretations we tried to stick to. This is before we started experimenting, so I guess, of course, there's going to be some of these usual problems. But anyway. Weird dreams. Woke up around noon, my mouth as dry as the desert. What an What an analogy. Or, no, analogy, simile? Simile. Yeah, what a simile. By which I mean it's a hackneyed simile. Got a glass of water and chugged it like there is no tomorrow. It's just, these are just such common phrases. It's just, I don't know. I don't know why I'm judging this for all this stuff. It's weird. Maybe it's because this is such a popular blog. I'm judging it harsher. I don't know. Weird dreams. I can barely remember it. I was a kid again, watching Saturday morning cartoons while my mom graded papers like she normally does. I could see each paper she graded even though I wasn't near her. That's the way dreams work, I guess. And she was failing each one, but not with an F, but with a big red X circled. Operator symbol. The cartoons ended and then that weird show I used to watch came on. The one with the pirate and the skeleton man. What was its name? SpongeBob! It was so creepy. I used to have the strangest nightmares about it. Obviously, there's the Candle Cove there, of course, but it's not predictable, but I mean, it's kind of narmy, I don't know. Then it was dark and my mom was gone and the papers were scattering like leaves and I could hearing something. Like the grinding of teeth, the scraping of stone, the sound that when you hear it, you know hell is near. Then my phone rang and I woke up. By the way, the post below? No idea. I must be sleepwalking again. Thought I stopped doing that a long time ago, but at least it's just typing. I'm not walking into traffic or anything. In the gloomy woods. I love the smell of used books in the afternoon. Went to the library today to check over their used book section and then came back with a paperback copy of Doomsday Book and a nice hardcover of Dante's Inferno, complete reproductions of old prints. Hang on. I've still got alliterator's copy of the Doomsday Book. I'm holding it right now, because alliterator actually sent me 2 books. He sent me the Doomsday Book, and he sent me We 3, a graphic novel, well, short graphic novel, about like bunnies and bunnies and cats and dogs, or a bunny, a cat, and a dog. They're robots. But Doomsday Book is this book about time travel and doomsday, and I actually haven't gotten that far into it. I should go back to reading it. I just felt like mentioning that it's freaking alliterator is practically my pen pal, and I intend on sending him like some of my books when I get around to finishing reading Doomsday. But anyway, right. I flipped through Inferno and came across this picture, which you can see here. This print is supposed to be Dante in the gloomy woods, but that doesn't really look like Dante, does it? Strange. His names. So many names. Slim, suited man, rail, thin. Rail! He's the Rapture protagonist. Well, the Lamb Lies Down on Broadway protagonist, who is also, metaphorically speaking, a name for the Rapture protagonist. Thin man, skin and bones. Man raw-boned, man angular faceless, long-limbed man, operator Mr. Gaunt. Cesbras tendouche. Laundry day. So it's laundry day today, which meant that as I dragged my basket of clothes to the laundromat, all I was wearing was a pair of worn jeans and my whatever happens in a black hole stays in a black hole t-shirt. That's pretty clever. That's an awesome t-shirt. Weirdest thing happened at the laundromat, though. I was putting my clothes in the washer when an old lady tapped me on the shoulder. When I turned to her, she said, "Fear is unknown a concept to him as wonder is to the night sky." What? I said, "Can I borrow some of your detergent?" Okay. So either I'm losing my hearing or I've been reading too many scary stories on the internet, or both. Below, I'm still sleep typing, I see. Must be some wacky dreams, but I can't remember them. Okay, I know that, like, I know Alliterator Avenue, or whatever this is supposed to be me promoting Alliterator's blogs, but I don't promote this one. I love Alliterator, I love his stuff. Every other blog of his that I've read has been really, really good. This is just, I don't know, it'll get better, I'm sure it'll get better. An elm wrens. When will he wake up? 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 When? Work weirdness. I work in the accounting department of a debt collection law firm. I know, supremely boring. Today was MLK Day, so the post office, the banks, and the courts were closed, so it was a pretty slow day. You say "so" a lot. Then this happened. Also, I'll mention this after the post. I take calls from debtors who wish to make payments on their account, setting up checks over the phone. This lady sounded around 30 and had just set up a check by phone for $50 for today. So what check number would you like to use? Nothing is ever lost within him. He remembers all that he has consumed. People, places, dreams. I'm sorry? No need for that. His eyes are closed, but his mouth is open, you see. And his arms, oh yes, his arms outstretched. His arms outstretched. I immediately hung up. This is getting beyond weird now. I'm not sure what I should do about it. So, my main criticisms with this blog so far, just so far, I'm still going to read all the way through it, is that it's trying for realism at the expense of the story. Because alliterator is a very great writer, but I guess since this was such an early blog, it was when we still had a canon, when we still tried to be realistic, tried to be like a Slender blog. So it's just, he's still trying to keep it realistic, and so he just focuses on the mundane things, and he doesn't really, it's just, I don't know, I'll just keep reading. Nursery rhyme. Hush, child, sleep now, no need to be fearful. We are safe up here now, no need to be tearful. He cannot see us up so high, higher than he is tall. He cannot find us up so high, just be sure not to fall. Higher than he is tall, just be sure not to fall. Oh yeah, that's good. You've fallen now, child, don't move, don't make a sound. You've raised his attention, child, now you he has found. Hang on. Don't move, don't make a sound. Wait, don't move, don't make a sound. Now you he has found. 6 syllables, 5 syllables didn't really work. He's taking you away now, child, don't look at his face, oh so pale. Close your eyes, don't worry, child, now you're a cautionary tale. Okay, so there's a lot of build-up to the Slender Man here. All quiet. Been pretty normal these last few days. No weird random outbursts. I've been pretty tired lately, though. Not getting enough sleep, I think. I'll be back with some more poetry next week. Need sleep now. Return to Slender. Open this ghost with millionary knives of wind. I am not a fool, I know about the code of conduct, the code of chivalry, the cipher code of story time is over. Nothing is out there, don't look. There are no shadows on the walls, arms slowly growing, he is not waiting for me. I am waiting for him. I'm reminded of Watchmen. You're not trapped... Wait, is it... Right. I'm not trapped in here with you. You're trapped in here with me. I am not a fool, I know about the box, the one left on the doorstep like so many orphans. Do not open it. It is not for you, it is for him, and it's clearly marked, Return to Slender. Open it. Return to Slender. I can't think of that without just thinking of comedy, because Return to Slender is just such a comedic pun. I've got mail. I came back from work to find a package on my doorstep. It was a plain brown box wrapped in brown tape. My address was scribbled in black marker on the front, and there was no return address. There was, however, a note. You are the receiver for all the things that are taken. Something must be returned. This is not for you. Reading the last post, I really don't want to know what to make of this, what it has to do with, TSM. TSM. I mean, this is the first time I've ever seen somebody abbreviate the. Because, normally abbreviations would just be SM, which kind of gives off impressions of BDSM. But, TSM. I don't know. That's a funny abbreviation. Yes, I believe in him, but I've never seen him. I don't know why, I just believe. Because you're in a fear blog! That's why you believe! Don't lampshade it! Just, yeah. If you don't have another explanation for it, don't lampshade it. Because it just calls it to attention. And it makes people realize, oh yeah, that he knows about it because it's a Slender blog. But I digress. I'm putting this someplace safe now. I'm not going to open it. While walking to the library today, I saw a little kid playing with a remote-controlled mechanical spider. From far enough away, however, the spider looked real. And my mind went, oh, that can't be real. Until another part of my mind said, oh, yes, it can. If he is real, and I know he is, I don't know why I know, but I know, then who knows what else is real? Giant spiders? Sewer alligators, pop rocks, and soda. When I got closer, I saw the little kid was controlling the remote. However, so my mind rested easy. Until the bit of my mind that sucks said, isn't that like life? We think we're in control, but someone else is holding the remote. We're all mechanical spiders. So you're trying to make us relate to a mundane scare. doesn't really work that way. Or, I mean, it doesn't work that well. I ignore this part of my mind most of the time. If I didn't, I think I would curl into a ball and never leave my apartment. But today I just got this bad feeling in my stomach, like I was going to throw up. At the library, I got something called the Book of Kant. Don't know why, I just picked it up. For some reason, this makes me more nervous. There we go. Where was I? The Illusion of Safety. Yeah. When I came back from work tonight, I saw that someone had kicked in my apartment door. The lock was completely broken. I called 911 and then waited 30 minutes until the police arrived. After a cursory 10 minutes of looking around, they let me back into my apartment. It was in shambles. Every single pillow or cushion had been cut open, all my books and DVDs were scattered across the floor, boxes of comics that had been kept in my closet had been emptied, the geek in me wailing, "Near mint! Near mint!" And my bed had been completely flipped. In the center of the floor, someone had spray-painted a big circle with an X through it. A short police officer asked me a few questions about any valuables I may have had. Aside from some X-Men comics in the 70s, I had nothing of value, which is probably why the burglar didn't take anything, the police said. All they were confused about was the X'd-out circle, but they figured it was a new gang sign. I know why nothing was taken, I know about the symbol, but I didn't tell them. What would I say? "Hey, by the way, I received a mysterious package in the mail a few days ago, and it's probably what they were looking for. I probably have to deliver it to a tall, thin man with no face who kills nearly everybody he meets, too." I could probably follow that up with, "Yes, I would like to be locked up in the loony bin." My parents insisted I stay at their house until the landlady gets a new lock installed. My only consolation is that I know the burglar didn't find the box. It's somewhere I don't think anyone would look. In my room. Paranoia. It's what's for dinner. I'm sitting in an IHOP right now, trying to gather my thoughts. I have half a cup of hot chocolate left, but I don't want to drink it. This whole week I've had a feeling of someone watching me. I could feel eyes on me wherever I went, taking the bus from my parents' house to work and back, going back to my apartment, even buying new bedding to replace the cut-up ones. Turns out I was right. They might be outside my work today. A man and a woman, both wearing casual business attire. She wore a tie and a dark red hair, while his clothes were crumpled. He was lanky and tall and wore sunglasses and seemed to be thrumming to some imaginary tune. She was slightly shorter, but had a kind of half-smile to her that seemed like she knew something no one else did. They said they were from a division of the FBI called SMSC. I didn't catch what the acronym was for. Stupid morons who suck cock. That's canon now, that's what it stands for. She introduced herself as Special Agent Liza Jane, and he was Special Agent Aladdin Sane. Yes, writing it here, they sound like made-up names. I didn't question it. Okay, hang on. I think you got that backwards, buddy. Because Aladdin Sane would sound made up if you're hearing it, not if you're writing it down. Aladdin Sane, if you're writing it down, it just looks like Aladdin Sane. It looks completely fine, but if you're hearing it, it sounds like Aladdin Insane. Then she asked if we could go someplace to sit down. Thus, IHOP. I had them show me their badges again, and then they asked me some more questions, mostly related to the break-in. Some were weird, though. One question was about my dreams, the other about my childhood. I declined to answer either one. Finally, I asked why they were here, what the FBI had to do with anything. Special Agent Liza Jane answered my question. "There were prints in your apartment that belonged to a fugitive we've been tracking. We need to know what he's doing here and why he was inside your apartment. If you received anything recently, a gift, a package, something he might be looking for, it might help us determine where he's going to be next." I asked, "Is he dangerous?" "Yes," Agent Jane said and then paused. "He's killed quite a lot of people." "So have you?" "Have I what?" "Received anything? Through the mail, given to you, or maybe just left on your doorstep?" She's Mexican now. I hesitated. "No." "Okay." She and her silently thrumming partner got up. "Here's my card. If you do receive anything unusual, call me. Or if you remember something important." "How likely is the possibility," I asked, "that this fugitive will come back to my apartment?" "Not very," she said. "He hasn't been back in the last week, so we think he's moved on from here." "She's talking about the Slender Man!" Suddenly there was squawking on the radios, and I heard the phrase Tango Whiskey Delta. Spotted. TWD. The WD. Wooden doll? Can't think of what that would be. Yeah, I don't know. We've got to go. Remember, any usual packages. And then they left. Oh, the Thin White Duke. I was sipping my hot chocolate when I realized what had been bugging me. Liza Jane, Aladdin Sane, SMSC, Scary Monsters and Super Creeps. Wait, what? Scary Monsters and Super Creeps? What? Am I missing something? Is that really what it stands for? And where did that come from? How did he figure that? What? And then I realized something else. Tango Whiskey Delta. TWD. The Thin White Duke. Just, where do you draw these conclusions? I never would have guessed that. And he's not even called the Thin White Duke. He's the Slender Man. You've called him that yourself. You've abbreviated it as TSM. Where do you get this? Did somebody, comment saying that? No comments, no comments, no comments. No comments, no comments, no comments. No comments, no comments. No comments. No comments. No comments, no comments. Where? What the? I'm really stumped over this. But I digress. Bad day. Started bad, stayed that way. Woke up at 4:55 a.m. Arrived at work at 6 a.m. First break was lunch at 12 p.m. Left work at 5:18 p.m. In between, hours and hours of massive tedious work that needed to get done right that very instant. Oh look, I'm following this blog. See, I follow blogs without even reading them. Is this all life is? Boredom at breakneck speeds? Watching the seconds flash past the pages of the calendar and one of those cheesy time is passing montages? Okay, if you put it that way, then I guess the boring realism posts actually make a lot of sense thematically. Because if it's trying to represent this idea of life being boring, then yeah, okay. Okay, good. Is this hell, or is hell the exact opposite, where things become too interesting? Is it possible for life to be too boring and too interesting at the same time? Yes, it's very easily possible for that. There was a police car outside my work. It might have been checking drivers for how fast they were going. It might have been watching me. I don't know. I don't know if I'm still on the radar of those SMSC people, or if they're really FBI. Do you think they know I have the package? Well, if they read this blog, they certainly know now. May you live in interesting times is a curse, but hell is a place where nothing ever happens. What about when you don't know if your life is interesting or boring? Well, if you don't know, then you're gonna find out, because, I don't know. I'll answer that later. The package isn't for me, but am I supposed to deliver it, or just pass it on? What's the difference? Am I just a way station for random weirdness never to be explained? And is it better to have no answers than to have an answer you don't like? Fucking, I'm getting too philosophical. I need to sleep now. You're not getting too philosophical, you're getting too hackneyed. I don't know. I do not know. February. Also, yeah, but brighter than a spoon. What if a dawn of a dream bites this universe in two? Let's scroll on down. Villanelle. I fear for when I see his face, the boxes where no one will find. For me there is no place. I'm mixed up in this race, in the middle of all, yet blind. I fear for when I see his face. There is no way to erase destiny, no way to rewind. For me there is no place. Who is in this chase? The poor player's undefined. I fear for when I see his face. Am I just another nutcase? Just another fool? Am I just another nutcase in a room, walls with padding lined? For me there is no place. In the lines that interlace, in the plan that is designed, for me there is no place. I fear for when I see his face. Okay. Anagnoricis. Anagnorisis. I'm so tired, but I can't fall asleep. The lamp beside my bed is on and it's casting shadows across the wall. I want to turn it off and take away the shadows, but I can't. The light has to stay on. I can't go to sleep. If I sleep, I'll dream. I'll dream about yesterday. So let's talk about yesterday. I don't want to know what happened yesterday, so I'll just write about it. Yes, I know. What happened yesterday? I'm trying to write it down, but it's difficult. The words won't form properly. I keep deleting things and retyping them. What should I put in? What should I leave out? What needs to be written? What doesn't? The first thing that hit me yesterday was the cold. It was freezing. And there was construction on the block where I live, so I had to take a roundabout way to get to work. Those combined made my morning lesson ideal, but it was nothing compared to what happened after work. Have you ever walked ahead of somebody and thought they might be following you? Had that strange someone is watching you feeling? I had that in spades. There was a man in a hoodie behind me when I was walking home, and I stopped at the supermarket just so I knew he wasn't following me. He kept walking while I paced restlessly through the pasta aisle. Whenever I'm in a supermarket, I'm always drawn to the pasta, the only thing I know how to cook well. After 20 minutes, I left, content that my paranoia was misplaced. At my apartment building, the hooded man was sitting on the steps leading to the front door. His hands were in his pocket, and he looked at me as I approached. No need to panic, I thought. He might live here as well. I've never met all my neighbors. These rationalizations quickly vanished when the man took a handgun from his pocket. I stopped moving and my stomach flipped. The gun wasn't even pointed at me, it was just pointed downward, as if the man knew even the presence of a gun was enough to make me scared. When he spoke, his words were cracked and gruff. You know who I am? I tried to talk, but it came out as a whisper. You broke into my apartment. You broke into my apartment. Yes. The hood kept his face in shadow, but I could make out the gray of a beard. Epic beard man. Hey man, you know what I'm looking for, man? It wasn't a question. Take me to the box. There was no question that I was going to do what he said. No or else needed. His body language was relaxed. He didn't care if anyone on the street saw his gun. I remember what Special Agent Jane had told me about this man, that he had killed many people. Or okay, maybe she wasn't talking about the Slender Man. But I bet she was. He stood up and said, Turn around and start walking. I did as he told me and then felt the gun pushed into my back. No tricks, no run. Got it? Nod. I nodded. We walked like that for what seemed like hours, though I knew it was only 20 minutes, with an M in there. The sky was the color of a bruise as we finally got to the post office. It wasn't far from my apartment, part of why I'd chosen it. The front door was open, and the one side of the post office was shut with a metal cage. I walked towards the P.O. boxes and felt the hooded man follow. I stopped in front of box 444. The hooded man grunted and said, That means something? A code? In Chinese, Japanese, and Korean, the words for and death are pronounced the same. Was I really talking about the minutiae like this? So 4 is considered unlucky. Nobody around wanted this P.O. box, so the price was less. Heh. The hooded man stepped forward, the barrel of the gun poking at my back again. Perhaps they're right. Open it. I took out my keys from my pocket, found the right one, and fit it into the lock. The P.O. box opened. Inside was another key, this one on a chain. It opens the back door. The box is inside on a shelf next to some other boxes. We walked outside, me holding onto the key, him with the gun on my back. My mouth decided now was the right time to explain why I had hidden it there. The purloined letter, you see. When he didn't say anything, I kept going. It's an Edgar Allan Poe story about a stolen letter. The reason nobody had found it was because it was in with a bunch of other letters. We were next to the back door of the post office when I heard the click and then the voice. What voice did I do for this again? I can't remember. Philip Jeffries. It was the voice of Special Agent Liza Jane. You are under arrest. The hooded man, who I could now assume was Philip Jeffries, raised up his gun and pointed at my temple as he turned around. I saw her and her partner 5 feet away from us, both of them holding up guns. Her half-smile was gone, and he was no longer thrumming. He still had sunglasses on for some reason, though. You don't get it, Philip Jeffries said. I'm not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with me. I'm so close. It's in the box what we need. What we all need. Let him go, Jane said. We'll see what's in the box without hurting anyone. Everyone gets hurt, Jeffries said. It's only a matter of time. He's a receiver, you know. Maybe I can cause the big guy some pain if I kill him. My mouth was suddenly dry, and it felt like my heart was beating 1,000,000 times a second. Don't, she said, and suddenly there were words in my mouth and I was speaking and I didn't know why. His eyes are closed. I yelled, and Jane and her partner stepped back, and I felt Jeffries pull away. His eyes are closed and his mouth is open. Stop it, Jeffries said, and the hand that held the gun was trembling now. We're nowhere near any trees. He can't come. His eyes are closed, I shouted. His mouth is open and his arms are outstretched. The world flickered for an instant, and suddenly there were trees all around us. Jeffries pulled back the hammer of the gun and said, Stop! But I couldn't. I shouted as loud as I could, His arms outstretched. The world flickered again, and not only were there trees all around us, but there was an entire forest. I could see it and smell it, and if I reached out, I knew I could touch it. Jeffries was still pointing his gun at me, but then there was a noise and he pointed somewhere else. There was a man walking through the forest towards us. He was tall and thin and wore a suit, or an approximation of a suit. The line seemed off somehow, and his arms hung down past his knees. I didn't even try looking at his face. It turns out he has a face, he just didn't look. Jeffries said no once, and then pulled the trigger. Bang! The slender man didn't even flinch. Jeffries fired again and then turned to run. I watched him as if hypnotized as he tried to run, but the slender man seemed to walk faster. Jeffries turned to shoot at him again, and the slender man reached out with his hand, and I saw that each finger was long and sharp. 4 thin red lines appeared on Jeffries' face. He coughed once and then collapsed, gun still clutched uselessly in his hand. The slender man then turned to look at me, and I closed my eyes tightly. When I opened them, I was outside the post office. Special Agents Liza Jane and Aladdin Sane were looking at me. Then I realized they were looking behind me, and I turned and saw Jeffries' body. I threw up. There were questions, but I told them the truth mostly. I fibbed a bit about what I saw in the woods. They hadn't seen it, apparently. They saw Jeffries firing in the air wildly and then get cut and collapse, but no forest, no slender man. I didn't tell them. When they asked why I had shouted those words, I answered them honestly, I don't know. I didn't know a lot. I didn't know what Jeffries had called me a receiver or what was in the box. They also insisted that I give them the box, but when I opened the back door of the post office, it wasn't there. Perhaps he took it. Perhaps maybe I delivered it after all. They finally let me back in my apartment at about 2 a.m. I watched late TV and infomercials until I fell asleep and dreamed of Jeffries, spouting thin thing, red lines of blood like flowers, trees sprouting up in city streets, their branches stretched and moved for buildings and cars, and a man walking quickly and quietly with long thin arms and fingers like knives. It was the first time I've seen him. I don't think it will be the last. That was a bit of a... I don't know what to think of that post. It wasn't great, it wasn't bad. But it was just... Maybe it's the fact that I'm reading it out loud. Ray Kent. While trying not to sleep, I've been reading the Book of Kent, the book I picked up at the library last week. It's a dictionary for the thieves' cant, a secret language used by thieves and rogues from way back when. Reading through it, however, some definitions seem to stick out at me. I found these scattered throughout the book. See if you can pick up a theme. Old Mr. Gaunt. See the skinny bastard. Branched men. Those touched by old Mr. Gaunt. Hatchet men. Those who worked for old Mr. Gaunt without being touched. Dance. To die. He danced in the fire started by that skinny bastard. Black book. A journal. It's just Sunderman stuff. The book was published some 40 years ago. The Thieves' Cant is over 500 years old. I wish I could say I was surprised. I'm gonna have a freaking drink of soda. So now the Slenderman has been introduced, and now I guess we're learning details about it. Which is usually one of my least favorite parts of Slender blogs, because, I mean, I know about the Slenderman by now. But it's not a problem with the blog, it's just a problem with having read so many of them. Pasta Prime. Back from doing my laundry at night. Usually I do it around 11 a.m., but I figured since I wasn't sleeping anyway and the laundromat is open 24 hours, what the hell. I've also cleaned out my fridge of leftover pasta, which brings me to a weird thought. The evolution of leftover pasta is an interesting one. Pasta is not really a food that becomes leftover well. The best leftover food is pizza, the second best is Chinese food. I will agree with that. Pizza is fantastic when it's left over. For one thing, pasta is only really good when it's hot and soft, straight from the pot. Mix in sauce and parmesan, and it's a wonderful meal, which I always invariably make too much of, thus leading to leftovers. Refrigerated pasta is, on the other hand, not quite as good. For one thing, it's cold. Reheating it in the microwave does it some good, but it's not quite the same as it was. For one thing, there's always some pasta that will stay cold no matter how long you nuke it. For another thing, if something happens to some of the pasta in the fridge, it becomes hard. So hard it'll chip your tooth. So perhaps on the first day of pasta leftovers, you eat some of it. Then you put it back in the next day, and more of it becomes hard. So you leave it in there and forget about it, and no longer becomes leftovers. It becomes that thing in the fridge that you move aside to get at the tortillas. Cold and hard, it is ceased to be pasta. It is, if you'll forgive the pun, antipasta. Now suppose you get hungry for pasta again. You don't want leftovers, you want it hot and fresh. So you make a new batch. And of course there's more that you can eat. So you put tin foil on that and stick it in the fridge, and 4 weeks later you have 4 dishes of cold, hard leftovers. You can't reach your tortillas anymore. Every time you open the fridge, they seem to taunt you. Finally, I got sick of it and decided tonight was the night to be rid of them. I removed the tin foil from each one and tossed it in the trash. The worst ones are the ones of the pasta that seemed to turn blue, or started to turn blue. So, beware of leftover pasta. Be sure only to make the correct amount of pasta for you or anyone who eats with you. Leftover pasta is not your friend. Okay? This week in weirdness. Make it comfortable. There we go. Sunday. To take my mind off of recent events, I decided to go see to the mall. Took the bus there, wandered around Borders for a while, get more comfortable. Ended up buying Jeff Vandermeer's The City of Saints and Mad Men. Then went to the theater to see The King's Speech. Good movie, especially to someone who used to have a speech impediment as a kid. In the hallway before I entered the theater that was showing the movie, however, I was stopped by an old couple. They looked to be about in their 60s. "Excuse me," the woman said. "What's that movie about the boxer?" The fighter? "Oh, yes," she turned back to her husband. "That's what it's called, The Fighter." Then she turned back to me and said, "You can't fight him, dear. Fighting only makes you fall faster. Like, what's the word?" Her husband chimed in. "Quicksand?" No, not quicksand. The other word. What's the other word?" While she was busy talking to her husband, I turned around and walked into the theater where it was dark and comforting. Hi there, sorry about that, but I had to cut that short for a bit, but I'm back now, and we're going to resume doing this. Alliterator Avenue, whatever we're doing, brighter than a spoon. Let me get comfortable. Okay, where were we? We were at Monday. Yes, right. Monday. At work, we have a new phone system in place. Debtors call in and can push a button to speak to various people. This means, unfortunately, that I get a lot more calls than I should. People who don't need to talk to me, and I can only forward along to the people they do need to talk to. After almost a full day of this, I'm tired and just want to check. I just want to clock out. But before I get a call at 4:55, so I pick it up and say, "Hello, office." There's no one on the other end. Alright, deep voice. "Hello, office," I repeated. "Hello?" Suddenly, I heard, "Hello, office. Hello, office. Hello?" My voice was echoing back. I hung up the phone. As I left the room, it started to ring again. I turned off the light and let it ring. Tuesday. I've been going around the construction on my street. They are tearing up the sidewalks and widening the road, so I just have to cross the street and walk on the other sidewalk. I get comfortable again, because this is really not that comfortable. There we go. But this day, they started to tear up the other sidewalk as well. I was standing on the dirt and gravel of the torn-up sidewalk next to a sign that stated "Open Trench," waiting for the green walk sign to light up. I heard a voice say, "Be careful." So I turned around and there's a construction worker standing next to the sign. "Be careful," he said again, and then smiled. His teeth were yellow. "El esta a la espera de la tormenta." The light turned green and I rushed across the street. It'd be funny if he said something like, "Porn is best on Fridays," or something like that. Wednesday. I felt sick, so I stayed home. Slept until noon. Watched television. When I went to pick up my mail, there was a slip of paper sticking on my mailbox. It was a copy of the tarot card, The Fool. I crumpled it up and threw it away. Thursday. On my way home from work, I stopped off at the grocery store to pick up some things. What kind of things? You know, I ruined that joke entirely. When I checked out, there was an old man in front of me taking his time packing up all his groceries. I couldn't start paying for my stuff because he was standing right in front of the debit card machine. Finally I said, "Excuse me." He turned to me and said, "He's waiting for you in another sense. He has already met you, already killed you, given you life. He is, has been, will be." Then he turned and shuffled away, holding the groceries with 2 hands. Friday. My computer screen went wonky for a moment, and then it went back to normal. I saw that Notepad had been opened, and it was typed, "The Quiet claims us all," several times. And then the quiet's introduced for the first time in the story with no precedent. But I mean, I guess that is the precedent that will come later. But anyway, Saturday. I decided to do my laundry on Saturday instead of Sunday. It takes approximately 2 hours for the entire laundry process to be finished, so I wait at Starbucks reading my book. Currently, One for the Morning Glory by John Barnes. Barnes, right. Finally, my laundry was ready, and I started folding it and putting it into the basket. A woman a few feet away from me is doing the same thing, but then she says, "This is a fucking disgrace! These machines ruined my clothes!" I tried to block out her voice, and I kept folding my clothes. "Hey!" she said in my direction. I looked up. "You backed me up, right? You saw me put my clothes in the machine. They're fucking ruined now!" I just shrugged and said, "My clothes are fine." I don't even attempt to explain to her that I never saw her until right now, that I try not to look at other people in the street or in the laundromat, that I try to block out people's voices, try to hear only the silences and empty voids. Not listening is harder than listening is, but it helps my sanity. She doesn't take the hint, though, and walked over with some clothes in her hand. "Look at them!" I tried not to look, but even a tiny glance showed that there was nothing wrong with them. I mean, come on, if it's just a tiny glance, you don't really know for sure. I finished folding my clothes, picked up my basket, and started to walk out. "Sorry," I mumbled. The woman evidently wasn't satisfied with such a mumbled apology. "This is a fucking disgrace!" She walked back to her pile of clothes and then said, "Next time you see him, tell him it's a fucking disgrace. He can wipe away everything and leave it to the fucking birds." I tried not to listen as I walked away, but I heard her say, "He can wipe it all away." Sometimes forgetting is easy. Dying is easy. Forgetting is hard. Where are we now? What is with all these fucking long posts? Tuning to Radio KRZY. Crazy. Radio KRAP. K-Rap with all your favorite rap hits. For some strange reason, all important conversations I have now seem to take place in IHOP. Case in point, yesterday was cold and wet and rainy. Almost immediately after I stepped outside, my shoes and socks were soaked through. Coming back from work, I decided to take a break from the rain and wander the aisles of the grocery store. I packet of pasta and a bag full of frozen dinners later. One bag of pasta, but a bag full of frozen dinners later. I left. And next to the store's sliding doors was sitting a homeless girl and her dog. She had a very baggy jacket on and a large cup and was holding out a styrofoam cup thing. I dropped all my change into it and started to walk away. "You got that look, you know," I heard her say behind me. I stopped and turned back. "Like you're trapped." "And you are trapped." She was rolling one of my quarters through her fingers as if to see it was real. "You're in one of his stories now." "What do you mean?" "Alliterators." She smiled up at me. "Let me guess. A blog, right? Probably started by posting some of your crappy poetry. Then you saw something, or someone saw you. Am I right?" I didn't say anything for a few seconds, so she said, "I'm not a hallucination, you know. Not gonna scare you by bleeding from the eyes or shedding cryptic messages. I can tell you stuff, though. Stuff you're gonna want to know." "Like what?" I asked. She smiled again. "First a warm meal somewhere away from all this fucking rain, yeah?" Or some sort of Midwestern thing, I don't know. Thus IHOP. It was close, it was open, and they didn't mind the girl's dog. "Oh, Opus is allowed anywhere," she said, anticipating my question. "He's been following me around for years. I think he's a German Shepherd or something. Never good with identifying breed." "What's your name?" "Agnes," she said before taking a gulp of coffee. "Agnes Day." I chuckled a bit. Why can't meet girls these days with normal names?" She raised an eyebrow at me. "Words are powerful, names more so. You think you know his real name?" "The Slender Man?" I almost whispered it. "No, the fucking Easter Bunny. Yes, the Slender Man. Nyan. Yeah, Nyan. It's not his real name, just the name we gave him. Still has some power, though. It's been used so often. So you should cut it down, make it weaker. Call him Slendy or Slendra or something. Slender. Call him something else." "The Beast. The skinny bastard," I said. "You've read about the Cant," she said. "Good. Secret languages, hidden symbols, these things have power too." As the waitress delivered our food, she continued. "Don't know why exactly. Maybe it's because he can't speak, so he doesn't bother trying to decipher shit. Or maybe he can speak and just lets us play these games to amuse himself." She started digging into her scrambled eggs. "You said I was trapped in his story." "One of his stories, yes," she said. "There are all types." Runners, rebels, radicals, rapture. I'm a runner myself. Started running 3 years ago, haven't stopped. She started on the hash browns. Which one am I? She stopped shoving food into her mouth and looked at me, still chewing thoughtfully. Been watching you. You don't look people in the face. You look at your feet when you walk. You don't hear people. You're trying to notice things. She took another drink of coffee. You're a receiver. I've heard that before, I said. What does it mean? What am I, the exposition fairy? She started scraping the food around her plate with her fork, moving into larger piles. You're tuned into the same frequency as he is, you see. Don't know why, some people just are. I'm tuned in? I'm seeing the same things he is? No, not the same things. You'd probably go crazy if you did that. She took off her cap and a shock of black hair fell down to her shoulders. She started scratching her dog's chin and fed him some hash browns. It's like you see things about him. For him. It's like there's a radio somewhere and he's sending out a message for him, but you're getting it also. She took another sip of coffee. Met a girl in Texas who was a receiver. She said sometimes it was really bad. Entire days where everybody she met started just screeching at her. How'd she handle it? She didn't. Took her dad's 45 to the temple one day. Goodbye, cruel world. She gave another piece of hash brown to Opus. I reached out to pet Opus and said, I don't want to do that. Can you help me? She looked me in the eyes and said, long as you keep buying me meals, I'll help. So I made a new friend, a new homeless friend who's currently sleeping in my bathtub. Opus is sleeping right on top of her, too. For some strange reason, this is actually comforting to me. Even if I'm crazy, at least I'm not alone. Yeah, she's a very appealing character. Gotta hand it to you. Raining. I can make a lot of jokes right now. It started raining in the afternoon today, and I forgot to bring my umbrella, something which was unusual. I bring my umbrella every day, even when it's bright and sunny. So on my 20-minute break, I rushed to a local Big Lots to buy a new umbrella. Big Lots is one of those we-sell-everything stores, where they sell food and toys and furniture for cheap, but it always seems sort of off-putting when you step inside. I went to where they had the umbrella, and luckily there was one left. I grabbed it and went to the checkout line. As I came to the front of the line, a little girl behind me said, We are cold. I didn't pay any attention to her until she said it again, and then I turned to look at her. She was holding her mother's hand and looking at me, and her mother was looking at me too. We are cold, her mother said. We are cold, the boy behind the checkout counter said. We are cold, the people in line said in unison. Camper! We are cold, it seemed everyone in the store said. This isn't real, I said. We are as real as the rain, the little girl said in a much more mature voice, her mother still clutching her hand. When the wind bites, do you not feel our teeth? When the thunder claps, can you not hear our scream? We are screaming. We are biting. We are cold. Everyone's face blurred for a moment as if the entire world was a bad photograph, and when they came into focus again, the boy behind the counter said, That'll be $4.50. I gave him $5 and left before he could give me change. Okay. A disquiet that follows my soul. Agnes and I have gotten into a sort of routine this past week. In the morning, I buy breakfast burritos for us and we walk Opus on my way to work. She goes off to wherever she goes while I put my 8 hours in, and I put in my 8 hours in. When I get off from work, she always seems to meet me on the way home. We usually talk about the Slender Man, theories about what he is, theories about having a receiver, or being a receiver, the weird things I've heard and seen. She rarely gives that information about herself, but I've heard her talk about living in Texas and Utah and Oregon. She never says why she left those places, but I can probably guess. She never left those places. You're talking to her dad. Today after work, I told her about the We Are Cold incident, and she got real quiet. I wonder what it means, I said. Then she said something that made me uneasy. There are other things in the Slender Man out there. We walked the rest of the way in silence. Let's do this. It's I-330. Okay. The cold boy. Let me get comfortable again, because I gotta always get comfortable, because I'm never comfortable. Right. Forgive me for hijacking this blog, but I don't think I can tell the story out loud to Tav, and he really shouldn't leave his account already logged in. No need to guess his password. He's sleeping right now, but I found that I have a difficult time falling asleep when I can hear the patter of rain. I've spent many sleepless nights trying to block out that sound. I first saw the Slender Man 4.5 years ago. I started running 3 years ago. 2 years ago, I met the Cold Boy. I know what you're thinking. What a stupid name. You are completely right. Yet it seemed to fit, and I can't call it anything else now. I'm changing voices a lot. I was in Portland, working in a bookstore. I hadn't reached my low points yet. I wasn't sleeping in the street, I had an apartment, I was only running when things got really bad, and the bookstore was a good job. It was quiet and I like reading. The sound of the pages turning is soothing. It was closing time, and I was checking every inch of the store, just to make sure no patrons were still there when I looked up. That's when I saw him. A boy, no older than 6 or 7, sitting Indian style in one of the aisles. His hair was blonde and he wore a blue striped shirt. He's me! Hello? I approached him. Is your mommy or daddy here somewhere? The temperature suddenly dropped and I could see my breath. The boy turned to me and his face looked weird, like a Polaroid that didn't come out right.
Mommy is in the ground and Daddy put her there,
the boy said.
He dug and dug and dug all night, and when he put her in, his fingers and lips were blue with cold. He died soon after. The cold took him.
The boy smiled at me.
The cold takes us all, sooner or later.
I backed away. There was a gun in my purse, but that was near the front door and seemed like it was miles away.
Your mommy and daddy are gone too. Your mom,
the boy said. He stood up and where he walked there was frost.
We can be orphans together.
He stepped forward and I stepped back.
We can be cold together.
He turned and I ran, I turned and ran. Words. I felt icy fingers trying to grab my shoulder, but I swung my elbow backwards and connected with what I thought was flesh, except it was colder than I'd ever felt before. It let go and I finally grabbed my purse and the gun and swung around with the barrel pointed straight ahead. The boy's face was cracked. It looked like he was made of ice, and when I hit him, it created a single crack down the side of his face.
You aren't very nice,
he said. The floor was covered in frost and my elbow was painfully hurting from where I touched him.
It's so cold. I think someone left the window open because it's so cold.
Why would you... Okay, that's just normie. Really? The cold boy says I think someone left the window open because it's so cold? Really? Just, what the hell? I mean, that makes it sound like the fears can easily be defeated by closing windows, and they themselves know that. And they're the ones who are giving you that idea. He stepped forward again, and I pointed my gun straight and fired. The sound seemed deafening in the bookstore, and a small hole appeared in the boy's head, but no blood.
You better shut the window,
he said,
or you'll let the cold in.
He smiled at me again, and he fell backwards and shattered into pieces. The store immediately warmed up, and the ice the boy was made of started to melt and became slush and then water. I put my gun back in my purse, locked the store, left the key on the doorstep, and ran. Agnes. Facebook notification. What we got? Cool. Right. Wait, fuck, where am I? Fuck. Right. March. There we go. Yeah, it's loading now. 13 more posts, and then we'll be down to the last 7. How long is this month? Relatively long. One foggy morning. So today was foggy. Very foggy. Like, can't see 10 feet in front of you foggy. Agnes has been quiet a lot this past week. I think telling that story took a lot out of her. She holds back a lot of things, but we still walk to my work together. Today I asked her to marry me. I tried engaging her in some conversation, but all she did was nod. Halfway to work, Opus started barking at something. There was still construction going on, so I figured he was barking at some construction workers, but Agnes immediately pulled him to the side and stopped. I stopped with her.
Is everything okay?
I asked. I know, dumb question. She shushed me and then leaned back to pet Opus, rubbing his head while she reached in her jacket pocket. She took out a small gun and suddenly I was way more nervous. The fog seemed to thicken as we waited. Opus barked twice more and then started a low growl.
Doggy?
A voice called out. It was a strange voice, like the wind blowing to the opening of a plastic bottle. Doggy, doggy, where are you? It made my skin crawl just listening to it. A figure appeared in the fog, the shape of a small boy. The fog obscured his face.
There you are, doggy, it said. Nice doggy.
Opus's growling grew louder.
Nice doggy with nice lady. Want a treat, doggy?
Sorry. The boy held out one hand, and inside the hand was a bone. The hand itself looked blue and cold. The bone looked fresh, pieces of meat still clinging to the ends. Agnes raised her gun and pointed at the boy. Go the fuck away, she said, her voice almost a whisper. A whisper.
Not nice,
Not lice, Nady.
not nice, lady,
The boy said.
just wanna pet the doggy.
I didn't know what to do. I didn't have a gun to point at it. Even if I did, the gun didn't seem to scare it or cause any harm. Could I do what I did last time? I didn't even know how I did that or if it would do any good, but I could try.
His eyes are closed and his mouth is open,
I said. The boy's face turned to look at me.
and his arms are outstretched. He is near and he is far,
The boy chanted.
closest house and furthest star. No more sadness, no more fear. He is far and he is queer.
He giggled and my skin felt cold.
Bye-bye now.
He turned and walked away. The fog seemed to lift and Agnes lowered her gun and put it back in her pocket. We continued walking and when we finally came to my work, she said, I know you have questions. I learned a while back that asking questions just leads to having more questions. I don't know why it left us alone, maybe because you were there, maybe it just wasn't the right time. She shrugged. But whatever happened, thanks. Okay. Ices.
The bark of the rivers, the roof of the wave, the description.
What the fuck's description? Description. I said it again.
The destruction of the doomed.
There we go. Sleepwalking. Those words below, I saw Tav write them, but he was still sleeping, his eyes closed to the world. Guess he's still a receiver, awake or asleep. Now comes the question, what's he receiving? What is he receiving? And who is it for? Agnes. Sane story. Breakfast at IHOP this morning, we had a little surprise. Just after we were served our food, Special Agents Liza Jane and Aladdin Sane walked up to our table. Agnes looked up at her and said, Well, if it isn't Special Agent Liza Jane, or is it Lady Stardust? I can never keep track. How did I do this voice? This was yesterday when I did this. Agnes, Jane said, we need to talk. No, we really don't. Agnes turned back to the menu, staring at it intently. Jane put her hands on the table and said, We can talk outside or we can arrest you. I know you have a gun on your person. Agnes looked madder than I'd ever seen her. Finally, she put the menu down and stood up. Fine. 5 minutes only, though. Won't take longer than 5 minutes, Jane said, and they both walked outside, Agnes in front. So now there's a Jane who is Indian, and now there's a Jane who is Mexican. Special Agent Sane sat down on the other side of the table from me. I didn't know what to say or if I should say anything. Finally, I said,
I didn't know they knew each other.
Sane started tapping his fingers on the table. There's a lot you don't know. I'll come up with a better voice for him.
Well, I know that,
I said and tried to smile. He continued tapping. I read that as fapping.
So, how'd you, end up doing this stuff?
Sane tapped his fingers and was silent for a few seconds. Then said, I worked narcotics in Miami. One day we raided a warehouse to try and bust some drug dealers. He stopped tapping. All the dealers were dead, though. Other cops said rival dealers must have held them at gunpoint and made them drink bleach. But that was stupid. Why poison them if you could just shoot them? And why wouldn't the dealers fight back? He started tapping again. I looked over some security footage and couldn't find anything until a few days before the raid. A man walked in and then walked out of the warehouse. He wore some sort of overcoat and a mask with a long beak. Looked it up later on. It was a Venetian costume. Medico della Peste. The Doctor of Plague. Just looking at him on the security footage made me want to wash my hands until they bled. And I knew this man had done something. Just 5 minutes of being near him and the dealers chugged bleach like they were 40s. They must have felt so... He stopped tapping and I turned to see that Agnes and Agent Jane were back. We're done here, Jane said, and Agent Jane got up. Agnes was silent for a while and we ate our breakfast without words. I was afraid to ask her what they talked about, but I finally got the courage to ask,
How did you know each other?
Agnes leaned down to pet Opus before saying, She's my sister. Wanted me to work for them. Turned her down.
Oh, okay.
I pushed the food around on my plate.
Do you want this? I'm not really hungry.
Sure. She took my food and I watched her eat. I want to buy her food. Under the spreading chestnut tree. I lied to you, Tab. They didn't want me to join them. They wanted my help, yes, but my sister would know not to ask me to join. She was the rebel, I was the runner. Instead, she asked for my help to get you to join. They want to use you, Tav. They want to use you as bait. But is that any worse than what I'm doing? Because this wasn't my first lie. That receiver I knew before, I figured out then that the cowboy would attack when I was near her. I knew if I was near you, I was safe. I used you too. But how long will that last? How long until the cowboy catches me alone and the Sunderman or whatever other foul things are out there? How long until a proxy kills me or you? I don't want to run, but maybe I have to. Agnes. Home means run no more. I found Agnes next to a dumpster behind my apartment building. She had a cigarette in her hand and was sitting on the ground, knees pulled toward her chest. You smoke? I asked. She looked at me. Not for a while. I sat on the ground next to her. You know why the nun went to the department store? She looked at me with crinkled eyebrows. She had bad habits. A smile lit up her face. I don't get it. What? You know what? I don't know. So, she said, guess you're wondering why I'm out here. I know why. I checked the blog. Under the spreading chestnut tree. 1984, right? I sold you, you sold me, she said, sucking in another lungful of smoke and then exhaling it. You haven't sold me yet. You said no to them. But they won't stop, she said. And the cold boy won't stop, and the Slenderman. That's why they're runners, because running is the only option sometimes. And sometimes it isn't. I stood up and looked at the night sky and the moon. They want me to be bait, right? Yeah. I looked at her. Then let's be bait. See, this is interesting. This is good. This is an interesting plot. Like, it's getting good now, but we're well after the halfway point. This sounds like this is what the entire story should have been about, and it took you this long to get to it. I mean, again, I love alliterator. I love his stuff. He made some new blogs today. He made that chainmail blog. He's a great writer, like easily like the, or if not just one of the best fear bloggers out there. But this was not one of his best, because I mean, like I said, this is back when we still had a canon. Back when we tried to keep things consistent with other blogs. Back when we tried to be realistic. We took examples from Slender blogs. But just I don't know. Preparations and dreams. We called Agnes' sister and agreed to be bait yesterday. Liza was quick to point out that we would be perfectly safe, which means we probably weren't, and that she was really glad we had changed our minds, which meant she was glad Agnes had changed her mind. She said that it had to take some time setting up a trap. For the Sunderman or the Cowboy? Or for the Sunderman or the Cowboy? I asked. Whichever one's yours. I'm going Midwestern with a Mexican accent. She said, it'll be about a week or two. We'll contact you. I'm trying to get this voice right. And then she hung up. Agnes and I talked her over too. We know weapons don't hurt them, but Agnes will bring a gun anyway. It makes you feel safer, which is a good thing. I saw a Louisville Slugger in a thrift store nearby. Perhaps I'll pick it up on my way home from work. A security bat. Had a strange dream last night, though. Agnes and I and her sister and Aladdin Sane were standing in the fallen snow. Watch us now as we unfold, Agnes said. Skin never touching, for we are cold. Flying with arms transfigured to wings, her sister said, dancing like puppets without any strings. As we resemble something that has not yet occurred, Sane said, waiting to release that one fatal word. Nothing below us, nothing above, Agnes said. I have never loved you, dear, as now I love. And then they all melted away to a nothingness that's only possible in dreams. Yet another reason to dislike the dentist. Sorry I haven't posted in over a week. That's whatever. I'm gonna ignore my complaint here. It's just, nothing's really happened. We're waiting to hear back from Agnes' sister, but in the meantime, I'm just going back my normal, everyday, boring routine. I haven't even heard anything weird lately due to my receiverosity. Well, except yesterday. Yesterday I had a dentist appointment. And after the dentist had finished cleaning my teeth, she said, be careful now, he'll swallow you whole. Tomorrow, she told me over the phone. We're being bait tomorrow. He's gone. It won't stop fucking raining and I can't stop trying and he's just gone. Waiting. I'm waiting. I don't know why. I don't even think he'll be back, but I'm still waiting for him. My sister keeps asking me about what happened. Apparently all their communications went wonky at exactly the same time. All video surveillance blinked off. Every horror movie cliche you can think of. I haven't told her yet. I'm not sure I can. But I want to write it down, write the story. That's what he does to us, what the Slenderman does to us. He makes us turn things into stories. People into stories, because he's a storybook monster. He spreads by stories. They all spread by stories. Read enough of them, suddenly you become part of the story, become the story itself. I want to tell the story. It's itching my mind, wanting to come out. What happened in that labyrinth when we were bait. I don't want to give him the satisfaction of turning into a story yet, though. I know I will soon, but not now. Not now. Now I'm just waiting. Agnes. I don't do accents very well, do I? Oh boy, a long post. Oh boy. The Cold War. This is not what happened. There was a great battle, an epic fight between good and evil, and good triumphed, and the hero won, and everyone cheered, and the evil monster died, and they all lived happily ever after. So Rapture didn't happen. This is not what happened. We changed our minds, told dear old sis in the SMSC to go screw themselves, and ran away and lived in the land, picking new names for each day of the week. That sounds really romantic. I'd love to do that. This is what happened. He is not dead. He did not die. Gone is not a euphemism. He is literally gone. He was there one moment and the next he wasn't. I'm getting ahead of myself. Begin at the beginning, end at the end. This is how it started. Unless you're Christopher Nolan and you want to do Memento. Special Agent Aladdin Sane picked us up at 6 in the morning. It was raining and Tav carried a slightly warm blue umbrella over our heads. Sane drove his jeep in front of us and told us to get in. Where are we going? I asked. You'll see, Sane said. He didn't sound smug or mean. It wasn't a smirking you'll see. It was a comment... pardon me. It was a comment that said, this is what this is. It took several hours to get to where we were going. Sane rarely talked. Instead he played music. Classic rock mainly. We sat in silence and let the sound of strumming guitars wash over us and let Opus stick his head out the window and get his forehead wet. Then we arrived at the labyrinth. It's not a labyrinth, Liza said. She was in front of the labyrinth in a black van, security equipment set up. Teams of men and women in body armor waited with automatic rifles and smoked cigarettes. It's a core maze. We were lucky to find one that hadn't been taken down yet. Yeah, I said. Lucky. It looked like a labyrinth. The cornstalks were high and the corridor they created would look dark and cold.
Reminds me of The Shining,
Tav said.
Wish I hadn't said that.
He smiled at me. We set up cameras throughout the maze, my sister said. We'll be able to watch your progress as each of you go through. Wait, I said. Each of us? As in separately? Yes. See, Liza said. That's the plan. She rubbed her knuckles together, a nervous tick I knew from years before. From what we know about the Slender Man and the Cold Boy too, it most often shows up when its targets are alone, isolated. So offensive now. Defenseless, I said. Yes, she said. Never let it be said that my sister sugarcoated anything. You will each go a different way through the maze. Hopefully when you are alone, the Slender Man and the Cold Boy will each show up for you. Then you will meet in the middle. And then what? They kill us? She looked at me and I suddenly remembered her face after Mom died, that steely gaze that said I'm not fucking around anymore. Hopefully, she said, they will kill each other. That's your plan? I said. Turn them against each other? That's idiotic. That's
the only plan they've got,
Tav said.
And it might work. You said the Cold Boy doesn't come near you when you were around a receiver. Maybe that's because we're marked somehow. Marked by the Slender Man. And if the Cold Boy was to be near me when the Slender Man was there, maybe they'll spark a war. There's one problem. You don't know that Slender Man will appear. I've only seen him once and he hasn't exactly followed me around. There is something you had that he wants, Liza said. She went to the van and brought a brown box taped up with words written on it. Remember this? Tav looked at it. That's the box. The Return to Slender box. You said it was gone.
I lied, she said. If you take this box in the maze with you, would the Slender Man show up?
Maybe,
he said. She handed her the box and he looked at it.
He follows the box, the Cold Boy follows Agnes. We all meet up in the middle and do-si-do.
That's what we're hoping for, Liza said. So far there's been no weapons that work against the Slender Man. Maybe another creature similar to him can kill him. That's a big maybe, I said. She looked up in the watery sky and said, Yes, it is, but that's the plan. Take it or leave it. We took it. Operation Asterion is a go, Liza said into a walkie-talkie and went into the van of security cameras. Sane stood in front of us before the labyrinth. If the plan doesn't work, we'll have a team go in and pick you up. And if it does work, well, they'll pick you up anyway, clap you on the back and buy you the first round. I handed Opus's leash to Shane. If we die, you take care of him. At the entrance to the labyrinth, we held hands and then let go, going each separate way. He let me hold on to the umbrella. He went the dexterous way, right, and I went the sinister way, left. He waved at me as he passed the first corner of corn and disappeared. I didn't think it would work at first. It felt stupid walking in the rain holding that blue umbrella over my head, hoping the Cold Boy would appear.
I thought we would both meet in the middle, alone, and have a good laugh. I would tell my sister it didn't work and she'd laugh too, and we'd all go have that drink anyway. And as the minutes passed and nothing happened, I grew convinced that nothing would. Then I heard the singing. Come to the window, my baby with me, and look at the stars that shine on the sea. There he was, waiting for me. A little boy, 8 years old, wearing yellow galoshes and a blue lane slicker. He was jumping in puddles. There are 2 little stars that play bo peep with 2 little fish, yeah, far down in the deep. He laughed and I felt colder than I had in years. I ran, the umbrella discarded in the rain. And 2 little frogs cried, neep, neep, neep. I see a dear baby that should be asleep. It's kind of fun. As I ran, I heard him. He was repeating the neep, 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 neep sound, and it made me shudder. Twisting, turning, I navigated the labyrinth on random chance alone, and luckily, far luckier than I should have been, I made it to the very middle. Tab was waiting for me. He was cross-legged on the ground, looking at the box. I don't understand, he said. This was for him. He wanted this. Why didn't he come? I called his name and he looked up at me. He could probably see the cold boy behind me because his eyes grew wide and he drew a sudden breath. He got to his feet. Come on, you bastard! He yelled at the rain. Why aren't you here? It doesn't matter, I said. Let's just run. I held his arm, but he just looked at the box. Screw it, he said and started opening it, ripping off the tape. I looked behind me and saw the cold boy standing there, jumping to an invisible rope, counting off numbers. He looked at me with ice blue eyes. Agnes, Tab said. Look at this. He had the box open and inside there was only one small photograph, yellowed with age and slightly burnt on one side. It was of the Thunder Man, his face a blur. So it's a family photo, so what? I said. Let's just go. Look what's behind him, he said, and I looked at the photo again. Behind the Slender Man there was corn, a row of corn. I looked at it and then I looked up. It was the same row of corn right in front of us, the same broken and bent stalks, the same rain coming down. Tab held up the photograph so it covered the spot where it was taken. Then he took the photograph away and it would become real. The exact instant, a snapshot of time was now, and the Slender Man was here. We stood in between seconds, in between moments, in between raindrops. The Slender Man was here. He could kill us all. He could kill the cold boy. He could do a funny walk for all I knew. Okay, because I have the video here, I just want to, it reminded me of, like, the best Genesis video ever. And I just picture a Slender Man doing what I'm about to show you. Right. Where were we? He didn't. He stood there. That was all. And yet, that was the worst he could have done. I could have handled it if he attacked us. My mind would have flipped the flight option and I would have grabbed Tab and run. But he didn't. He stood there waiting. Hello, Mr. Slender, the cold boy said. His voice was the wind cutting my skin, setting on my teeth on edge words. She left the window open. She's a cold one. We're gonna play hopscotch and jacks and we're gonna be cold together. The Slender Man stood there and I thought for a moment he was gonna talk, but he didn't. What are you talking about? Of course I'm gonna talk. Hi there, my name's Frank. I'm here to sue you. Instead I heard Tab say, There are rules. There are rules even for us. She's cold, you know this, the cold boy said. She's all frozen and stuff. What? Did I really just read that? She is all frozen and stuff? Really? I mean, this is why the cold boy is never gonna be scary. Just what the fuck?
How does anybody find this scary? She is all frozen and stuff. Jesus.
Not anymore, Tav said. I looked at him. His eyes were closed and his mouth was open.
Tav, I said. Tav, wake up.
He is my mouth, Tav said. There are rules that even we cannot break. She is not cold anymore. She did not run.
The coal boy hissed like a cat. The air grew colder and I could see frost growing up on the corn stalks.
Not fair, the coal boy said. I want a toy. Find another, Tav said.
Humph, the coal boy said.
Fine.
He walked back to the corn stalks and suddenly the rain started again and time was slowing again and Tav's eyes were open.
Agnes, he said.
I thought he was going to ask what happened when I was about to tell him, but then he said,
His face, so bright. Can you see his face? I think I have to touch it.
I tried to grab him, but there was a bright flash of blinding light and I let go. I let go, and when the light was gone, so was he. Both him and the Slender Man were gone. Just me and the rain in the labyrinth. Agnes.
She's all frozen and stuff.
Insomnia. He's still not back. I wait outside his apartment every day, sometimes roaming the paths we took, following our faded footprints. I found a book next to his bed, one of many stacked in uneven piles. It was Jorge Louis Borges, Poems of the Night. There was a bookmark in it which leads to the poem Insomnia. There was a part of the poem that was highlighted. Do it awake or asleep? Do receivers read of electric sheep? In vain do I await the disintegration of symbols that come before sleep. Universal history goes on, the tiny course of death through the cavities in our teeth, the circulation of my blood and of the planets. There's another passage later that's also highlighted. Tonight I believe in fearful immortality. No man has died in time, no woman, no dead person, for this inevitable reality of steel and mud has to traverse the indifference of all who were dead or asleep, though they hide in corruption in the centuries and condemn them to a ghastly sleeplessness. Rough clouds the color of wine Rough clouds the color of wine leaves will stain the sky, and dawn will come to my tightly closed eyes. I have the book in front of me now. I'm flipping through it, listening to the soothing turning of pages. I always liked Borges, labyrinths, mirrors, tigers. It's a warm night tonight. I think I'll wait outside for him and read under the stars. April. We're almost done. There's 7 more posts. Return. He's back. I was waiting outside the supermarket where we first met, one hand petting Opus, the other holding on to Poems of the Night, and then there he was. He walked out of the market holding on to a new brown umbrella, taking off the plastic coating and discarding it. I got up and watched as he walked right past me, not even noticing I was there. Tav, I said. He stopped and turned. He looked at me and said the 4 saddest words.
Do I know you? Lol, JK.
Well, fuck that shit, I thought. Amnesia or not, I'm telling him everything. But maybe I didn't need to. Why are you buying the umbrella? He looked down at the umbrella, confused.
I lost my old one. I don't know where it is.
I do, I said. I left it in the labyrinth. Do you remember the labyrinth? His face was blank for a moment, as if he was trying to recall something that wasn't there. And then something changed. His eyes grew wider as he looked at me.
I saw his face in the labyrinth, he said. I was his mouth.
Yes, I said. Do you remember me?
Agnes Day,
he said, and I silently rejoiced.
Lamb of God.
She's Lamb of God. She is the entire band, Lamb of God. He looked down at the umbrella again.
I remember it all now, I think.
You've been gone for 2 weeks, I said. Do you remember where you were? What happened?
I think... He paused. I think I need something to eat. How about you?
So I went to IHOP, and there he told me the story of 2 worlds. One world where he was crazy, and one world where it was the world itself that was crazy. I'll let him tell you those stories, though. I'm just glad to have him back. And then we had sex. A dream deferred. I don't really know where to start. I'm going to try writing it all down, but it's going to take more than one entry. I was in the labyrinth. The Slender Man was standing there, Agnes was clutching my arm, the rain was coming down, there was a sudden bright light, and I opened my eyes.
I was in a room. Instinctively, I knew this was my room, even though I'd never seen it before. The bed I was laying in was unknown to me, and there's a book on the floor that I didn't remember reading, but it was mine, I just knew. There were pencil drawings in neat stacks in the dresser, and above the dresser there was a window barred. God damn it, I can't get comfortable. I got up and went to the door. It was unlocked. I walked down a white-tiled hallway, my shoeless feet almost slipping once or twice. Eventually I reached a sort of common area where people were milling about, playing board games or watching television. There was a door on the other end of the room. There was an orderly-looking man sitting on the chair next to it. As I walked to the door, the man said, "Everything okay, Mr. Lowe?" I paused. Clearly this person knew who I was. Perhaps it was better to just get straight to the point.
"Not really," I said. "Where am I, and how did I get here?"
The orderly looked at me with a rude smile and said, "I guess we better get Dr. Gallagher here. He can explain everything to you." The orderly then led me to a chair on the other side of the room and condescendingly said, "Why don't we just sit here and wait for the doctor, okay?"
"Okay,"
I said. Perhaps I'd had a brain injury in the labyrinth and they had brought me here where I healed. After about 10 minutes, a young man in a white lab coat walked towards me. "Dr. Cloud!" The orderly whispered something into his ear, and the man, whom I assumed to be Dr. Gallagher, nodded. Then he sat down across from me.
"Tav,"
he said.
"Do you remember who you are?"
"Yeah," I said. "I'm not a complete amnesiac. I just don't remember how I got here or where here is. So if you could tell me, that would be a great help."
"Alright," the doctor said. "I'm Dr. Gallagher, and you're at the Ashfield Psychiatric Clinic. Your parents brought you here around 3 months ago."
I slowly processed this information.
3 months ago? It's already June?
The doctor raised his eyebrow at that and said,
"No, it's still March. You've been here since January." "That's impossible," I said. "I've been going to work and doing other stuff. I've never even been in this place before." "This other stuff," the doctor said. "Would that be encountering the Slender Man and the Cold Boy?" I swallowed. "So you've read my blog. So what?"
"I've more than read your blog, Tav," the doctor said. "I helped you create it." And he began to explain. He explained how my parents had admitted me for clinical depression. He explained how I would refuse to take any medication, so he tried treating me through other means. He explained how he encouraged me to create a blog, to make it into a story where I could resolve my problems. "The Slender Man was something that really interested you," he said. "And I thought it might help for you to personify your problems like that, to make them into a physical form so you can defeat them. But I was wrong, Tav. I didn't understand. You chose the Slender Man because in his stories he's never beaten. You literally chose an invincible foe to represent your problems. I thought you were getting better when you introduced Agnes and the Cold Boy because these were new elements that you controlled. Here was a new monster you could defeat." Dr. Gallagher sighed. "Sadly, I don't think that worked either. The metaphor of the Cold Boy, the coldness that you feel, that hasn't gone away, has it? I think you need to accept the medication now, Tav." I hadn't said anything about his explanation. Finally, I looked him in the eye and said, "This isn't real. This isn't true. My life isn't just fiction." "Of course not," the doctor said. "You just made parts of it up. Surely you remember writing it, don't you?" "Of course I wrote it," I said. "I wrote it down because it happened." The doctor sighed again and stood up. "Come on. I want to show you something." I stood up and followed him. We walked down the hall to another room, this one set up with several tables with computer monitors on them. "This is our computer lab. We allow some of the patients here access so they can email family members. Look." He opened up a window and typed into the URL, and my blog came up. "Look at the URL, he said. Nihilartikelling. Or Nihilartikelling. Do you know what that means? You must, because you decided on it." I didn't say anything, so he changed the website to Wikipedia. "Let's just look it up, shall we?" He typed in the work and the page changed to a new page title called Fictitious Entry. "It's German," the doctor said, "for nothing article. It's a fake article writers would
put into dictionaries or encyclopedias to catch copyright thefts. So nihilartikelling would be the process of making fake entries. He turned to me. It was your little joke, Tab. You made it all up.
And it came true anyway.
I have to stop here. I have to get my thoughts in order. They're all jumbled up now, and untangling them is getting harder and harder. I'll try writing more tomorrow. Tomorrow, even though it does it in the same day. The reason for waking. Where was I? Oh, right, I just learned that my life for the past few months was a lie. A lie perpetrated by myself. Did I believe that? Hell no. Yet the evidence was before. I recognized that computer. I remember typing into that keyboard. How could I do that if I'd never been here before? How could things be both familiar and foreign to me? Remember that code in the beginning of your blog? Dr. Gallagher asked. You know why it hasn't shown up again? Because you got bored of it. Do you know why it always seems to be raining or foggy or cold? Because you're depressed, Tab, and you put all that into your story. Objection! Dr. Gallagher, the story was pretty badly written at first, so it was realistic. So I don't think that that applies. Nice try, though. Try again with some other story, one that's not so realistic. I walked slowly back towards my room, and yes, I didn't have any trouble remembering where it was, and Dr. Gallagher followed me. At the door to my room, he said, I'm sorry to have been the one to pull you out of your delusion so quickly. Usually, if a patient is as immersed in a fantasy world as you are, we like to gradually pull them out. I sat in my bed and the doctor leaned against the doorway. I would still like for you to take the medication. Is that alright with you? He asked. I looked at him.
What if I say no?
He shrugged. Nothing will happen. You're here voluntarily. You don't have to accept any treatment we offer. You could even leave here if you want, though I wouldn't recommend it. Your mind is... Your mind is very confused right now.
I'm tired,
I said, and it was true. I felt so tired. Perhaps I'd slept in between the labyrinth had it been real and here, but I didn't feel like it. Get some sleep, he said. I'll see you tomorrow. I leaned back in my bed and remembered there was a book on the floor. The pages opened, the spine creased. I couldn't leave it like that, so I turned over and picked the book up with one hand. It was the lost book to the Odyssey. I looked at the page it was turned to, the last page I had apparently read before dropping into the floor and falling to my delusion. It read, Then, mercifully, revelation comes. He realizes that this is not Penelope. This is not his hall. This is not Ithaca. What he sees before him is an vengeful illusion, the deception of some malevolent god. But real Ithaca is elsewhere, somewhere on the sea roads, hidden. Giddy, Odysseus turns and flees the tormenting shadows. I fell asleep thinking about those words. When I woke up, it was nighttime. I stood up slowly and looked out the barred window. There was a garden with benches, and beyond that there was a number of trees. Beneath the shadow of one of the trees I saw a figure, tall and thin. As I looked out, he stepped into the light, and I saw his white and featureless face. I went to the door to my room. It was unlocked. My bare feet made no sounds as they tread the tiles, and I reminded myself to get some shoes. But first I needed to get someone. As I navigated the hallways, I remembered where his office was. I remembered that he often worked late. As I stepped to his door, I wondered if this was a good idea. But I had to make sure. I had to be certain I wasn't crazy. I knocked, and after a few moments, Dr. Gallagher opened the door. Tav, he said. What time is it? I looked at my watchless wrist and said, 2 freckles past the hair, Doc. Come on, I want to show you something. To his credit, Dr. Gallagher followed without complaint. I asked where we were going, and I replied, outside. I remembered to ask for my shoes, and he helpfully led us to where the orderlies stashed them. As I slipped them on, they felt comfortable, and I realized I was right. I hadn't seen these shoes before, but they fit completely. I smiled as I led Dr. Gallagher outside and walked past the garden and the wooden benches to the trees where I'd seen them. Why are we here, Tav? He finally asked.
Philosophically or physically?
I asked. He frowned at me. Fine. Do you know about the many worlds theory?
Isn't it some quantum physics thing? He said.
Something like that. Oh, wait. Oh.
Fine, do you know about the many worlds theory?
Isn't that some quantum physics thing? He said.
Something like that, I said. Basically, whenever someone makes a decision, there is also a world where they have made the opposite decision. There is, in fact, a world where they made every single decision they could make. Theoretically.
And?
And I don't think this is my world, I said. I think the Tab in this world is depressed and did write all those things while here, but I'm not him. I think I'm recognizing things from dreams, because I think we had the same dreams, being a receiver and all. You're not a receiver, Tab, he said. That was just a story. I am, I said. I can't quite explain everything, though. I mean, I don't really know why the Slender Man brought me here. There is no Slender Man, Dr. Gallagher stated emphatically. He's just a story. Dr. Gallagher, I said. Turn around. The doctor slowly turned around and saw the Slender Man. His face tilted upwards until he saw the Slender Man's lack of face, and they jumped backwards so quickly they fell on the ground. I think I have to go with him now, I said. The Slender Man stood there, arms at his side. This isn't my world. I don't think he'll hurt me. Not yet. I think he just wants to show me something. But... The doctor was clearly not coping well with this turn of events. A dramatic turn of events. The Slender Man turned and started walking through the woods. I began to follow him, but stopped and turned back to Dr. Gallagher. Just remember, I said, he's only a story. Motherfucker! Then I turned back and followed the Slender Man through the woods. The next part is sort of complicated. I'm having trouble remembering parts of it. I told it all to Agnes, and I'll try to get her to help me remember what I forgot. I think I had to forget some parts. Maybe there's the only way I could get back here. Oh boy. A hell of a good universe next door. So I've been trying to piece together this in a coherent story. I've forgotten a lot of it, but I sat down with Agnes and she reminded me, I'm really fucking thirsty right now. Oh my god, why do we have any drinks? Right. I've forgotten a lot of it, but I sat down with Agnes and she reminded me what I told her before. Things I had said. I even have a notebook that I tried to write it all down in, but it just descends into random words. Anyway, here goes. Have you ever seen that old show, Twin Peaks? No. That rhyme they had on the show? God damn it. Through the darkness of future past, the magician longs to see one chance out between two worlds. Fire, walk with me. God damn it. Well, we were certainly between two worlds right now, and I was walking with fire. I was walking with the Slender Man. The wood stretched out. The wood stretched around us, seeming to go on forever. The Slender Man took long strides, and I walked quickly to try to catch up to him. Questions sprang up into my mind. Why'd you bring me here? Where are we going? Why haven't you killed me yet? I said nothing. Finally, the Slender Man came to a stop, and I stopped just in time to not bump into him, which would probably have been a very, very bad idea. I looked to the woods in front of us and then looked around, so that when I looked back, I was very surprised to see there was a door. A door standing in the middle of the woods, leading to exactly nowhere. The Slender Man stood aside. I assumed he meant for me to open the door, so I did. I turned the handle, opened the door, and before I could do anything, I felt a hand on my back push me in, and I stumbled through the door and fell. The Slender Man had shoved me. Ha ha! I stood up and realized I was now back in my apartment. I looked for the door, but it wasn't there. Then I looked around. My apartment was distressingly empty. No laptop, no books, nothing. Since I didn't have a cell phone to call the cops, I decided just to walk place. Outside, it was dead silent. This is when I realized the Slender Man hadn't brought me back to my own world. I was somewhere else. Trash littered the ground, like in those cheesy post-apocalyptic movies, and there was way more graffiti than normal. There were symbols spray-painted outside the building. They looked like 2 hourglasses. As I walked down the street, I realized that I was probably going to walk for a while. It didn't seem as if there were any buses or vehicles of any kind in the street. As I passed the church, I saw the marquee outside, now read, Life sucks and then you die, drop out of the human race. Give up the past, give up the lie, come up, accept the archangel's embrace. Blocks up from that, there was a graffiti which read, The rake at the gates of hell. Finally, I found someone else. There was an alleyway with a graffiti on it that... I fucking love you, alliterator. There was an alleyway with a graffiti on it that read... Hang on, I'm gonna find the exact... There. Where... I don't know where. Hang on. Hang on. Somewhere in here.
well, I just basically tried to play the thing. This is from the Genesis song Home by the Sea, which is actually about a robber who enters a house in the middle of the night, only to turn out it's full of ghosts. But anyway, out of the dark was suddenly heard, "Welcome to the Home by the Sea." And standing underneath the graffiti was a young man in a brown hoodie. He was hurriedly spray painting what looked like to be the Omega symbol. "Hey," I said to him. He turned to look at me with an expression of pure shock and then began to run. He didn't go far. At the end of the alleyway, he tripped on some wires, and then the wires started to move and twist and turn, and they wrapped themselves around the man. As he screamed, they dragged him away. It's really hot. I mean, hello, right, sorry, right. Unfortunately, his scream was one of the things I do remember. It was so loud in that quiet world. I ran. I am the country of Iran. Iran, whatever you want to call it. I turned from the alleyway and started running. I could hear something slithering behind me, but it didn't look. Suddenly there was a jeep on the road. It slowed down beside me and the door swung open. Inside was Special Agent Aladdin Sane. "Get in," he yelled at me, and I followed his orders without question. In the rearview mirror, I could see what looked like watery pieces of cable trying to follow us. "God damn it," Sane said and stepped into the gas. The cable was quickly left behind. "You just had to wander into her territory, didn't you? Couldn't make things easy for me. He began to laugh, and I realized that he was very different from my world, saying, "Don't worry, we're in safer territory now. We'll be coming up to a base camp in a few hours. Got any more questions?" "Yeah," I said, "but I think every answer would just bring more questions." He laughed again, and I shivered. "I like you," he said. "Didn't think I would, but I do." "I'm glad," I said. "Where are we going?" "Base camp's near the beach," he said. "Funny thing is, it doesn't look like the beach. Or it doesn't like the beach. Doesn't like the ocean. Likes everything else except the ocean." I didn't particularly find that funny, but I stayed quiet. "So," I finally said, "where's Liza Jane?" Sane got quiet. "You knew Liza?" he asked. I nodded. "She was a good partner. I liked her. Got too involved, though. Tried to save her sister from the kid." "Agnes?" I swallowed nervously. "What happened to her?" "The kid took both of them," he said. "I don't want to talk about it." So we both stayed quiet as he drove us closer and closer to base camp, whatever that was. It was at base camp that I really found out what was going on, when I learned about the war and the quiet. That's where I met myself. A soon forgotten tune. Agnes reminded me of something I didn't include. Two things, actually. I just forgot them. Even after she told me, she had to tell me again so it wouldn't slip my mind. I know that tomorrow I'll read this post and I won't remember writing it. Anyway, during our drive to the base camp, there was plenty of graffiti scrawled on the empty freeways and roads. Some of it was different, but most of it said one thing. "The quiet claims us all. Theodore Quiet." Then there's the next thing. I need to remember this. I'll read this tomorrow and wonder why I ever forgot. The base camp near the beach turned out to be an abandoned movie theater. Someone had spray painted on the marquee the operator symbol, the circle with an X through it. And below that, this was written. "God's terrible face brighter than a spoon." Okay. "Through the stars in their silence," or "though the stars in their silence." I need to write this. I need to write this down. I need to remember this. Aladdin Sane, and just now occurs to me that his name can be heard as Aladdin Sane. It took you this long! Anyway, drove me to the base camp. It was an abandoned theater called the Rialto, I believe. He unlocked the doors and pushed them open, letting us into the dusty velvet interior. "He's upstairs," Sane said as he started climbing the thick carpeted stairway. "Who is?" I asked. "I thought answers only lead to more questions," he said, looking back at me. "Come on, let's just go see him." Upstairs, I saw Sane approach one of the protection rooms. The door to the room was guarded by two men. One of them, upon seeing Sane, said, "Going to see Tiresias? He's in a bad mood now." Okay, whatever. I'm just laughing at Tiresias. "Isn't he always?" Sane said. "But don't worry, I picked up what he wanted." I approached the door and both guards suddenly stood up straight and stared at me. "Quit gawking," Sane told them. He took hold of the door handle and said to me, "You go in. Only you." Like before, I followed his orders. He opened the door and I went through. The projection room had been stripped of its projector. It was purposeless now, just an empty room with chairs. And there was a man standing next to the projection window. From the back, he looked familiar. I don't see how. I mean, you don't ever really see the back of your own head. Then he turned around and he was me. He was I. It was like looking into a mirror, a strange mirror that shows you some alternate version of yourself, what you would look like if different things happened.
"Hello, Shav,"
he said. He wore dark sunglasses and his hair was cut short.
"I suppose you're wondering why you're here."
No, hang on. Alternate version of Tav. Hello, Tav. I suppose you're wondering why you're here. It wasn't a question, but a statement. He brought you here to see something, to witness an ending. As he was talking, he turned back to the projection window, and I realized he was blind. The men outside had called him Tiresias, the blind prophet, who lived 6 years as a woman and the rest of his life as a man. Just so I could find out which... Well, okay, he didn't do it... It was because of a curse. Or, like, I think it was like he killed a hermaphrodite or something. He killed a... He did something pretty horrible, and then they cursed him and turned him into a woman for 6 years, and then he became a man for the rest of it. And then Zeus and Hera came to him and asked him to settle a bet, like which sex receives more pleasure during sex, and he answered women. So, and Hera didn't like that, so she blinded him and cast him to the underworld. But anyway.
What happened to your eyes?
I asked. He turned back to me with a blank expression on his face. I wasn't as lucky as you. I didn't have anyone to help me when I started being a receiver. The things I saw overwhelmed me. He helped me, though.
The Slenderman helped you?
I was incredulous. Yes, he said. I took all this in and said,
You're a proxy.
I'd prefer not to be called that, he said. But essentially, yes. It's not as simple as you'd think.
How?
I asked.
He kills people. He drives people crazy. How is that not simple?
The other me was silent for a few moments and then said, You've been outside. There are other beings in the Slenderman, and they're all at war with each other now, and war makes strange bedfellows.
You slept with them.
It's either work for one of them or die, and sometimes it's the other way around. I put my arms together in defensive posture.
So why bring me here? Where did you want me to see?
The other me started walking then, and watching him walk was a weird experience, as he seemed to know where things were without looking at them. And he opened the door. Come on, he said to me. We're going outside. He told the guards at the door. Nobody follow us. We walked down the stairs and through the large entranceway, and I was tempted to walk this way, like in those old Mel Brooks movies. There was a side entrance, and the other me unlocked it and walked outside. I followed. We stopped in the parking lot. There were old rusted cars around us. They were never meant to war outright, he said, looking up. What they are, it sort of bends reality. And the more reality bends, the greater chance it'll break. I'm afraid something broke. And now it's worse. Worse than you can imagine.
I can imagine a lot,
I said. Imagine nothing, he said. A vast nothingness. A vast and alive nothingness that's spreading. That's overtaking us all. He lifted his arms upward, and I finally looked up. He said, There is always a last time for everything. And the stars softly vanished into the deepness of the night sky. I can't remember what happened next. Can't remember. Agnes here. Tav's sleeping right now. I don't know if he'll remember anything of what happened in those 2 weeks, or if what he does remember is true. On the other hand, I want to implicitly believe everything he says, but on the other hand, the Slenderman messes with minds, messes with memories. I don't know why he would go to all things trouble. Does he want to recruit Tav? So, I won't speculate on whether this actually happened or not. I'll just write down what Tav told me that happened. After the stars went out, Tav said everything went dark. Then there was a light. All the lights had gone out around the base camp, and with the light Tav saw him. The Slenderman. Except this time he was slightly different. For one thing, he was 20 feet tall. The Slenderman loomed over him like Godzilla. It's a really funny analogy. Then he lowered one arm and his hand closed around Tav. Tav said he shut his eyes tightly, and when he opened them again, he was in his bed in his apartment. His actual apartment this time. Like I said, I won't speculate on whether any of this was real or not. To me, it doesn't matter. What matters is that Tav is safe, and the rest is silence. Tomorrow is our permanent address. Agnes found me behind my apartment building, sitting next to the garbage cans. Want to smoke? She asked. I sat with my knees pulled inward. She held out a cigarette. I shook my head. Silence pervaded the air around us. Then she asked, How much do you remember?
Not much,
I said.
Just the beginning, in the psychiatric clinic.
After that, just bits and pieces. You know what scares me? Plenty of things, I bet. She smiled.
What scares me,
I said,
is that I might be back in the clinic right now. This might just be a dream or a story or something.
Do you really believe that? She asked.
I don't know what to believe, I said. I don't know if the Slenderman really took me to another world, or if he was just messing with my mind. I don't know if he was trying to warn me or trying to recruit me. I don't know. I just have no fucking clue about anything.
She reached out and held my hand. Stop. Breathe. Stop. Breath. Wait.
Wait for what?
I asked. Wait for anything, she said. Wait for something. I waited for you when you arrived. I stopped. I breathed. I looked at the
I looked up to the stars and waited. This feels kind of silly, I said.
Your face looks silly, Agnes said.
I started to talk. I have no job. Turns out not going to work for 2 weeks means you're pretty much fired. I won't be able to pay the rent. I won't be able to buy us all of his breakfast at IHOP. And then there's a Slender Man. I don't think he'll go away.
He never does, Agnes said.
Then what? I asked. We run?
That's an option, she said. Except it won't be like last time. We won't be running away from something. That's not the way. We'll be running towards something. We'll be waiting.
For what?
I asked as she lifted her face to the heavens. Waiting for tomorrow, she said. Running towards the future. That sound good? I looked up as well and stopped and breathed.
That sounds great.
Huh. Okay. Well, that was Brighter Than a Spoon. And now for my patented DJ review. So, that was... Yeah, it started slowly. It started not very interestingly, with quite a few questionable writing tactics. But then it took that really appealing turn for the surreal. That was philosophically very satisfying. That's the thing about alliterator. Even when he's making a blog that isn't that good, he will make it good. And if you trudge through like a blog of his, even if you don't like it, when it's done, you will love it. You'll feel so much better for reading it. I mean, he didn't exactly make the Cold Boy scary, but he presented it as more of just fears at war, or just the concept of that, the possibility of that. Alliterator seems to do that a lot with his blog. Seems to just present the possibilities of things without going all out and saying this is what happens. He skirts along the edges of concepts, and it doesn't. He knows when to stop. When he gets started, it's just so amazing, and then he knows when to stop. He'll stop just before the satisfaction, and it'll just leave you really craving so much more. And he's a classic fear blogger, But Brighter Than a Spoon, yeah, this was a good blog. It wasn't at all my preference, and like I said, the first half of it was just kind of like typical blog fare, but that ending, oh wow, that was quite worth it. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this reading of Brighter Than a Spoon. I hope you decided to sit through it, just like I sat through reading it. And I recommend you go to nihilartikelling.blogspot.com and you click on that followers thingy. Even though the blog's been over for over a year now, I recommend you would follow it, because that's like custom, or that's my custom anyway. My custom is if I read a blog, I'm gonna follow it. Just to say that I've read it, to add it to my repertoire, my bookcase, my internet bookshelf, you know? So I recommend you do that too. Because Brighter Than a Spoon, it is good. And Alliterator is a very good writer. Yeah. Fucking great writer. So yeah, thanks for listening. This is DJ32, signing out.